Just a reminder of how far off Newcastle are from being at the level of Manchester City. This is going to take a long time for Newcastle to get to that standard. Well, hello again from here inside a very wet Etihad Stadium, which probably reflects the mood among you guys, followers of Newcastle, because yes, tonight we've had confirmation, at least if we go by the Bible's definition, that Newcastle's wait for a domestic trophy will officially extend to a lifetime, 70 years, 70 years and 10. And for me, never really was it in any doubt. Now, I've just tweeted something there where I said I thought the inevitability of it, the result was fairly routine. The game for Manchester City, 1 or 2 have come back and said they thought Newcastle were better and improved in the second half. And yes, I accept that there was an improvement, and we'll come to the reasons as to why that was. But honestly, when you're a reporter and you sat there and you're writing to deadline as you are in these games, I always try to give you this insight. You are governed so much by a feeling inside you, which I liken to jeopardy. And you know, is there jeopardy in terms of what is happening in front of you in the pitch, which will then transpire to what is on front of you in the screen? And at no point there tonight that I feel was there any jeopardy with regards to the result. If Newcastle score at 2-0 to make it 2-1, Alexander Isak did have that chance. What did Man City then do? I think they'd probably go up the other end and score. Every time I seem to look up from the screen, Rodri or Mateo Kovacic had the ball. Newcastle had no real meaningful possession. Yes, there were 1 or 2 little moments when they did threaten, and I could see what they were trying to achieve. I must admit, you know, the change in system, and we'll sort of hinge to this to go back to the start, even though I think on the whole Manchester City were just so comfortable, just a better team than Newcastle, a better team, better players, and Newcastle weren't disgraced. But to go back to the start, after 10 minutes, we file into a live runner at the Daily Mail, and after 10 minutes I'm writing steady start, can see what they're trying to achieve with this change of formation to the 5-3-2. At that point, Newcastle then conceded Bernardo Silva. Now, on the goal, I think it's a poor concession because yes, you are always likely to concede space and shots to a very good Manchester City team with some wonderful players. But at what point were Newcastle going to make that challenge on Bernardo Silva? They were dropping off, deep enough to the point whereby, you know, another 1 or 2 seconds later, they would have actually been in the goal mouth with Martin Dubravka. They've sat off too deep. They've allowed Bernardo Silva to take the ball into the box. He has a shot from 8, 9, 10 yards out, takes a big deflection off Dan Burn. And yes, that is unfortunate, and it undoes what is an okay start, in my mind at least, in the stadium, looking at it, undoes that. And from that point on, really, it's pretty much as good as game over. You know, can you be giving teams like Manchester City that sort of goal start after 10 minutes? Then they go and get a second, and it's the same again. Backing off. The shot comes in, takes another deflection, but you're asking for trouble if you're allowing a player the quality of Bernardo Silva to have that space for a shot in the first place. Now, I go back to why I see what I thought Newcastle were trying to achieve, because if they'd come here tonight, for me, and played the way they have done at other teams, or Liverpool elsewhere, with the 4-3-3, with those big holes in the midfield, and there still were holes in the midfield at times, by the way, we'll come to that. I thought they were being picked off with ease, but they were putting the extra man in there and trying to play with balls around the back and in behind for Isak and Gordon to chase. There were 1 or 2 little moments inside the first 10 minutes, and again, people come back and disagree with this. What game are you watching? I'm sorry, but I was here and I could see what they were trying, like I said, I use that phrase, what they were trying to achieve, and using the pace of Gordon, using the pace of Isak. There were 1 or 2 little moments inside the first 10 minutes, and then they even had moments beyond that. You know, I didn't think Newcastle played terribly. For all I felt the result was inevitable. And does that just come back to the fact that, you know, Manchester City are better? They do have better players, and the control they offered there tonight, I thought, you know, the Rodri, Kovacic, Phil Foden, I just thought they were a different level to what Newcastle have got. Allied to that, and this goes back to everything I said pre-match, Newcastle's players who aren't as good as Manchester City's players, they're not even fit. You know, they've got injured players in the treatment room, and it looks like injured players on the pitch. I used this phrase pre-match, didn't I? And again, that played out in front of us tonight. What chance do you stand coming here to Manchester City, Newcastle United, if you've got, you know, 3 of the 11 for me who want 100%? And I'll list them. We'll start with Sean Longstaff, because I thought he had another poor night again, and it's got to the point now, I think a lot of Sean, goodness, I spoke so well about him last season. I think he's a great lad. He'd probably shout back at me, what's this got to do with it? He's great to interview, he's good company, he's a good player as well. But he's struggling so badly at the moment. Eddie Howe said to us yesterday he can't take him out of the team because there is nobody else, even though he's playing with a foot problem and having injections. Well, I'm sorry, but he's got to come out of the team now, be that for Louis Miley, for Elliot Anderson, Elliot Anderson came on and did more in about 10 minutes than Joe Willock and Sean had managed in the previous hour on the pitch. That brings us on to Joe Willock. This was always likely to happen. He would come back in, play tremendously well after so long out, and then bounce. Well, we've seen 2 or 3 bounce games now from Willock. He doesn't look right. Something needs to be done there to perhaps protect him. I don't know. But Longstaff and Willock in there in the midfield, 2 pretty anonymous performances, didn't offer much at all. By the time Miley and Anderson came on, there was a definite improvement. But Bruno Guimaraes was in the midfield there by himself and almost playing alone at times. On the end, you looked at him at the end of the game and just thought, wow, a penny for his thoughts. He's come here to Manchester City, and we'll get on to the merit stars. Bruno might feature. He's come here to Manchester City. Clearly, Pep Guardiola, every time he's given the opportunity, flutters his eyes at Bruno. And I think, he does have the quality to fit into a Manchester City team. Is he a Manchester City starter? That class of Rodri, Silva, Foden? I don't think he is, but I think he's a very good player, and I thought he did okay for Newcastle here tonight. But it was in a midfield that just couldn't compete. 1, probably because of ability, but 2, also because they've got players in there who just clearly aren't right at the moment. That extends to other areas of the park. Alexander Isak gets the 2 wonderful chances at 2-0. The one just over my shoulder there before half-time when Dan Burn does well, gets up at the far post, nods it down. I saw Alan Shearer said he should have scored. I think I've even written myself he should have scored. On reflection, I've seen it back. I do think it's a very good save. But does a different version of Alexander Isak score that goal, or do something different to take a little touch at? Probably he does, and Eddie referenced that after the game as well. He's then got the chance in the second half. Like I say, when Anderson comes on, him and Bruno together, Harry City out of possession, Almiron works the ball to Isak, and it's just, if he's 100%, he hesitates, he drops, he stops, he starts, he ends up winning the corner, which from that position, winning the corner is a scant consolation when it should have been at the very minimum a shot, and probably more so a goal, which would have made it 2-1. Now, what would have happened on the back of that? I think Manchester City would have gone up to the other end and scored a goal, or just not allowed Newcastle to really have the ball so in control worthy. And it just as a reminder of how far off Newcastle are from being at the level of Manchester City. This is going to take a long time for Newcastle to get to that standard. In last year was overachieving, and this brings us on to the question of Eddie Howe. Now, there was a lot of debate and discourse pre-game, a lot of it as a result of what was said online for me, because I think when I meet fans in the street or on the train today, or listening to you guys singing in the away end there's no riling against Eddie Howe, there's no real angst against the management. I think there's understanding, and so there should be. I feel really strongly about this. There's some pretty just strong language used against Howe after the game on Monday night, and I haven't been through it again tonight. I imagine that there probably will be frustration, there'll be anger, but come on, the reason Newcastle are in this position in the first place, whereby they're coming to Manchester City in FA Cup quarter-finals, whereby there is a slight expectation to compete, whereby they've had a season in the Champions League, it is because of the manager. And for me, he's got my support. I think he deserves the support and understanding of supporters as well. That's not me saying, I'm telling you what you should think, what you should say. But of course it's not. It's my own opinion, and it's my opinion of where I think the mindset of supporters should be. That's not to say you can't disagree. Goodness, not. Of course it's not. Please say below the line. As ever, I made this point the other day. A lot of you guys now are having gone from a position the majority of the season where it's thanks for the videos, Craig, agree with every word you say. People disagree now, and that's fine, that's good, It's only one man's opinion I've got. It's just that I do think that to suggest Eddie Howe's position should in any way be brought into question between now and the end of the season, I think that's nonsense, I really do. But I do think he's got to find a way, and I thought there was a step in the right direction there tonight with the change of system. He's got to find a way to limit damage, sort of suggestion of progress with what they've got at the moment in terms of personnel who are missing and the personnel available being so depleted in terms of what they can potentially give. I just think they've got to now just find a way to get through to the end of the season. And while Howe has said I think it was his words just before that, it's nonsense to suggest they've got nothing to play for. And of course they still have got Europe to go for. I just think it still could potentially, in terms of results, get worse at times before it gets better for you. Pep Guardiola said to Eddie Howe at the end there that isn't normally the way you play. I didn't know whether to read that as a compliment or an insult. A compliment in that you normally give up more chances than what you have done of late, or the other side of the coin where he's actually referring to what they were like last season. Newcastle are unrecognisable from the team of last year. You know, we've said that many times now, and that is why I say between now and the end of the season they've just got to find a way to get through, really. Now, the merit stars in ascending order, and one goes to, and this might be a bold call, he was only on the pitch for 30 minutes, but Elliot Anderson. I've already touched on this. Elliot Anderson did more to impact on what Newcastle did in the final third of the pitch than I thought some others did when they were on the park for a lot longer. Elliot Anderson gets the 1 star, and you just hope now with him he's getting to a point whereby you perhaps can come into the team from the off, because changes do need to be made, I think, in there, you know, especially in the midfield. 2 weeks now they fly to Dubai straight from here. You know, you would hope that at the back end of that, Elliot Anderson is getting into a position where perhaps you can starting game. The 2 stars, well, they go to Jacob Murphy, and I honestly thought it was a continuation of his performance down at Chelsea on Monday night, when I thought he was the one player who, in a team that's lacking energy, he provides it, and he put 2 or 3 great balls into the area. It was from his cross, which Dan Burn knocked down, that Isak had the chances before half-time, and I thought Murphy, while we know the quality isn't always going to be there, there are 1 or 2 times, they sat there in the press box and you're scratching your head as to his decision making, but you know, with him at the moment, the energy and the purpose and the intent is there, and I think he's got to be one of the first names on the team sheet for that very reason. Murphy gets the 2 stars, and the 3 I think goes to Bruno Guimaraes. I've already talked about this. I thought he was head and shoulders Newcastle's best player there tonight. Listen, without being, you know, anything more than a sort of 7, perhaps pushing a 7.5 out of 10. I think I give him a 7 in my merit marks, by the way, link in the description below the line. But yeah, I thought he almost played Man City on his own at times, tried to get on the ball, went on 1 or 2 good little runs, tried to thread balls in behind for Isak. So no for me. Bruno Guimaraes, he takes the 3 stars quite easily as well. I don't think there was any real danger of anyone else taking those top merit marks off him. What did Eddie Howe say to us just downstairs afterwards? Well, in terms of news, just quickly, Tino Livramento, he missed out with an ankle problem that was picked up against Chelsea on Monday. He should be back after the international break. He said that one isn't serious. And on the performance, Eddie said that he thought Newcastle did okay, I think was the word he used. You know, he bemoaned the luck. He said the footballing gods are against us in terms of the first 2 goals. I would go along with that only to a point, and then I would, as I said at the top of the video, I would go back and say, well, you know, you've allowed Manchester City to get so close to your goal. It's, you know, if it's not deflected, it's perhaps going in anyway in the first place. So I disagree slightly there, but I thought the overall sentiment of what he said in terms of coming back to just how good Manchester City were. In Newcastle, they didn't disgrace themselves. They were better in the second half. They did limit the chances City had without the result ever being anything other than a foregone conclusion. I mean, you know, the second half was a little bit of a non-event, just in that I thought City were always in control, really, and there's a long way to go for Newcastle, really, in the journey before we're talking about Newcastle United, the super club, in the same breath as Manchester City. There was one moment in the second half that just really captured Newcastle's night. It was a promising break over on the right-hand side there. It's Bruno's ball in behind. It's pulled back to Dan Burn right on the edge of the area. It's on his favoured left foot, just smash it, put your foot through it. He takes a touch and he ends up making a pass that doesn't find the teammate and just runs away for a goal kick, I think, in the end. You know, that just almost summed up, and this is something Eddie said as well, you know, the lack of quality they had in the final third. For having done okay, ultimately when they got to a point whereby they could hurt City, they just weren't able to do it. And, you know, then you go back to the goals they've given away at the other end, and Sven Botman, you know, another difficult night for him with Sean Longstaff. I think Eddie now has got to find a way to take him out of the team, because, you know, those 2 players together are clearly carrying knocks. While you look at Willock and Isak, will they work their way up to fitness eventually? I think Botman and Sean Longstaff now need to be taken out and almost preserved between now and the end of the season. Where did Newcastle go from here? Well, they go to Dubai, I go back to Newcastle, and I'm away covering England this week. And yeah, the only good news for Anthony Gordon tonight was that he was involved so little. He avoided injury. So hopefully I'll be speaking to him next week down at St George's Park. You know, as I said the other day, you know, what a prospective debut against Brazil on Saturday night. But no, guys, I'll hopefully bring you a video during the international break, a little bit of a Newcastle update. So yeah, for now, one last scan of of this place. Thank you again for watching. Please hit like, comment and subscribe. Like I say, always brilliant debate below the lines. And yeah, I'll see you during the international break. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.